his ex was a woman from a show called Suits. I didn't know what the show was. I didn't know the woman. Months later, I see.
Why? Because she wasn't able to be in the #1 spot because she married the spare instead of the heir. We should have done.
There is growing outrage after Meghan Markle's own brother begs Prince Harry to cancel the royal wedding.
Before Trevor Engelson even said a word, his family already knew. They saw everything the way he poured his soul into that relationship while getting almost nothing back. They watched him bend, compromise, sacrifice, and all the while, they saw something in Meghan that he refused to acknowledge. For almost 10 years, they kept quiet. They didn't interfere. They just watched, hearts breaking, as their son twisted himself into knots trying to make a marriage work with a woman who, deep down, seemed to be planning her escape long before the vows had even cooled. But they weren't being judgmental. They weren't overprotective. They were right. They saw what Trevor couldn't, the truth that love had blinded him from. And now, after a decade of silence, Trevor has finally opened up, letting the world know exactly what his family saw all those years ago. The confession that shattered everything. The moment that flipped his entire story upside down. The realization that the woman he adored had been following a plan and he was never truly part of it. But what exactly was that confession? What did his family recognize that Trevor couldn't? Oh, buckle up because what's coming next is absolutely wild. Before diving into the heartbreak, let's rewind. Who exactly was Trevor Engelson? And why does his story matter so much? He wasn't just some random guy Meghan dated casually. No, this was her husband. They were together for 7 years and married for 2, almost a full decade of shared life. This wasn't some fleeting fling. This was a full-blown marriage built with dreams, promises, and love, at least from his side. Trevor wasn't a celebrity chasing fame. He was a hardworking Hollywood producer, the kind who quietly built careers, who preferred the behind-the-scenes grind to the spotlight. A man who believed in work, loyalty, and love. And by every account, he adored Meghan. Not the perfectly polished, camera-ready Duchess the world knows now, but the woman behind the glamour, the real Meghan. Yet even back then, something felt off. Not obvious enough to scream disaster, but just enough for those close to them to feel uneasy. Friends whispered, family members exchanged worried looks. The balance was wrong. It always felt like he was giving, and she was calculating like her eyes were already set on something beyond him. But when you're in love, you don't see it. You don't see the cracks. You patch them with excuses, blind optimism, and the hope that love will fix it all. That was Trevor endlessly giving, endlessly understanding. Adjusting his schedule, reshaping his life, and bending his world around hers. For a while, he probably thought he was doing everything right, being a supportive husband, putting his wife first.
Had a whole vision board of her life with the royal family and of the royal family themselves.
The people around him, though they saw a man emptying himself out for someone who gave very little back, they saw a man twisting himself into someone else's idea of perfect while she quietly prepared her exit. This story doesn't begin with the divorce headlines or royal drama. It begins with a man who loved completely and a woman who had already moved on in her mind. Trevor isn't bitter, not publicly at least. He's moved on. He's working, living, even smiling again. But some pain doesn't heal. It just sinks deeper, becoming part of who you are. His story matters because it's a warning about giving your heart to someone who only sees you as temporary. About trusting blindly, only to realize that trust was never mutual. Meghan erased Trevor from her public story as if he never existed. Like those years meant nothing, but he was real. The love was real for him anyway. And then came the confession, the one thing his family never forgot, the moment that changed everything. It started like any intimate conversation between two people who believed they shared everything. She told him something huge. She said she couldn't have children. That's not a small thing. That's life-altering. For many, that revelation shakes the entire foundation of a marriage. But Trevor didn't argue. He didn't pressure her. He didn't even ask for explanations. He accepted it lovingly, wholeheartedly. Because when someone you love drops a bomb like that, you don't fight them, you adjust. And that's exactly what he did. He reshaped his vision of their life together around that truth. No kids meant a different kind of future, one he fully embraced. He accepted it with grace, never once making her feel less than whole. He focused on their careers, their travels, their shared ambitions.
Like, yup, and I'm like, I go, you think she's gonna close? And he's like, oh, she'll close. And I don't wanna get into more about that, but he was like,
he let go of fatherhood because she said it wasn't possible. That's what love does, it bends without breaking. For years, that was their private truth. But then, the unimaginable happened. After their divorce, Meghan remarried, and suddenly, she was pregnant. First Archie, then Lilibet. 2 children, born to the same woman who once said she could never have any. Imagine being Trevor in that moment, seeing the headlines, the photos, the baby joy, and realizing that the one thing that had shaped your entire marriage might never have been true. Confusion, pain, betrayal. All at once. He didn't rage, he just fell silent. People close to him say that moment broke something in him. Because if that part of their marriage wasn't real, what else wasn't? The realization haunted him. Every memory twisted under its weight. That one confession turned out to be the first crack that made the whole thing crumble. That conversation, that lie, or maybe that half-truth changed everything. It wasn't about children anymore. It was about trust. It was about realizing that the person you'd built your life around had built hers on something entirely different. Then came Suits, Meghan's big break. Trevor became the definition of a supportive husband, constantly flying between Los Angeles and Toronto, rearranging meetings, sending care packages, checking in every day. He even considered relocating just to be closer. He thought he was being the best husband possible, but the more he gave, the less he got. She wasn't cruel, just distant. Slowly pulling back, turning the volume of their love lower and lower until it was almost silent. He didn't notice it at first. He thought she was stressed, busy, overwhelmed, but her priorities had changed. He was no longer part of her future. She had outgrown him, or so she believed. Friends saw it clearly. Every visit felt like an interruption. Every call like an obligation. She was physically present, but mentally gone. Trevor kept pushing, kept believing, kept hoping. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You fight for it. You trust that they'll meet you halfway. But she never did. Her exit wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, detached, cold, like a transaction. The marriage didn't explode, it just dissolved. And when it ended, she didn't break down. She seemed relieved, free, like she'd been waiting for that moment. For Trevor, it was the end of his world. For her, it was just another chapter closing. Friends say he wasn't angry, just empty. Watching her move on so quickly, thriving, smiling, glowing, while he was still reeling, that was the final blow. She mailed the wedding rings back. Mailed. Not returned in person. Just put them in a box, stamped, and shipped like an unwanted package. That moment destroyed her.
Markle made her first husband agree to a pregnancy contract to make sure that she was afforded every possible life.
Because it confirmed what his heart had suspected, that he had been fighting for something that, to her, was already gone. The more Trevor thought about it, the clearer it became everything had been one-sided from the very start. What he thought was love, she treated like strategy. The marriage wasn't two people building a life, it was one man building a foundation while the other prepared to climb higher without him. She didn't scream or argue, she didn't even seem angry. She just detached quietly, efficiently, like she was removing an accessory she no longer needed. For Trevor, love had been a sacred promise. For Meghan, it had been a chapter 1 that had simply reached its end. Her calm, almost cheerful detachment cut deeper than any words ever could. He wasn't just losing a wife, he was realizing he had never truly been part of her future. People around him say she changed during Suits, but maybe it wasn't a change at all. Maybe success just revealed who she'd always been. Every new opportunity she grabbed seemed to push him further into the background. It wasn't that fame corrupted her, it exposed her. It showed that he was never the destination, only the stepping stone. Trevor had believed in her so fiercely. He'd rearranged his life, cut back on his own dreams, flown across countries just to be present. He thought that was what good husbands did. But he didn't realize he was starring in a one-man performance, a devoted husband in a play where the audience had already left. He carried the weight of the marriage alone. The flights, the messages, the care packages, the nights waiting by the phone, all him. Meanwhile, she drifted farther away. It wasn't the fights that ended them, it was the silence. The indifference. The way her eyes no longer lit up when he entered the room. He'd once believed what they shared was unique. Then he realized it wasn't. It was rehearsed. He wasn't the first, and he certainly wouldn't be the last. Every moment he thought was genuine, every touch, every word, every shared plan now looked like part of a performance. He had been living in a script written for someone else's ambitions, and when that realization hit, it broke something in him. Not because he still loved her, but because he realized he never really knew her at all. He'd loved an image, a dream version of Meghan, not the real person beneath the charm. The real Meghan was strategic, deliberate, and always 5 steps ahead. He wasn't angry anymore, he was enlightened. He could finally see what his family had seen all along, that she was never truly invested in them. She was invested in her, and when you look back, the signs were there all along. The carefully planned conversations, the emotional distance disguised as ambition, the subtle shifts in her story. The woman who once said she couldn't have children now had 2, and never once acknowledged that earlier confession. The silence around it was louder than words. Then came the coldest blow, the way she returned the wedding bands. Not in person, not with emotion, just mailed, like an Amazon return. A lifetime of love and dreams, reduced to postage and a tracking number. He held that package for a long time before opening it. Inside, the rings gleamed untouched, emotionless. That's when it sank in. She hadn't just left him. She had deleted him. From her story, from her history, from her public image. And as she rose higher, entering royal circles, basking in global fame, he realized he had been erased. Millions saw her smiling face, her perfect story. None of them knew the man who'd loved her first, supported her when she was unknown, believed in her dreams before the world even noticed her. That kind of pain isn't loud. It's quiet, deep, and permanent. Because when you've given everything to someone who saw you as replaceable, there's no dramatic ending, just emptiness. He stayed silent. Not because he didn't care, but because speaking up would make him look bitter. If he said a word, he'd be labeled the jealous ex. If he stayed quiet, he'd remain erased. There was no winning. So he chose peace, the only peace available to him. Friends say he carries himself with quiet dignity now. He works, he laughs, he lives, but behind his calm exterior, there's a shadow that never quite leaves. A reminder of what it feels like to be used as a stepping stone for someone else's climb. Every time Meghan makes headlines, every time her name trends, he's reminded. Not of love lost, but of truth revealed. He knows what really happened. His family knows. And deep down, more people are beginning to see the same patterns. That's his closure, not her apology, not her recognition, but truth. He's learned that clarity is sometimes the only justice you'll ever get. He no longer needs the world to validate his pain. He knows what he lived. He knows what he gave. And he knows she'll never truly escape the truth that her rise was built on the ruins of people who once believed in her. He's not chasing revenge. He's chasing peace. Because real healing isn't about proving someone wrong. It's about finally seeing them for who they are and forgiving yourself for ever believing they were different. That's Trevor's truth. And maybe, just maybe, it's the truth a lot of people need to hear.